Hello there, it's your girl Daphne with a new channel. So I want to welcome everyone. So I hope you guys are ready. I'm sharing 15 DIYs today. Let's get started. And we're getting started with our first mug. We're in Cricut Design Space and I'm just free typing in bottoms up, which is going to be the wording for our first mug. I did a poll over on Instagram the other week and I just asked for a vote of who would like bottoms up and who would like let's get toasted. So the votes came in about even, so I decided to do both mugs. So today is going to be the first time that I'm using my Cricut mug press as well. So we're just sizing the word so that it will match the dimensions of the mug itself. We're doing a 12-ounce coffee mug. So I was trying to make the wording similar to like the Ray Dunn font. So this is what we came up with. So before we get started with adding on the wording to the mug, I just wanted to switch over and start working on the topper. Now this is a really cool mug topper that we're going to make, and it's so easy, quick, and simple to make. So I'm getting started with a silicone coaster that I happen to have around my house. You can use cardboard as the base, you can use foam. It just really has to be like a sturdy base, and you want to make that base be the same as the opening of your mug. So you want to just flip the mug over and trace it out and cut it to be in the circle. And then to make it easy and to use less product, what I'm using is just a spare piece of foam. If you have a spare piece of foam around, you're just going to cut it into like a maybe 1.5 inch circle, and you're going to hot glue it down in the middle of the coaster. And if you don't have like any type of foam, you can use like a styrofoam half ball or any type of material. You just basically want to build it up a little so that when we go in with the spackle, we don't have to use as much product. So while that's drying, we're going to prepare the mug. We just need to make sure that we use some rubbing alcohol to get it nice and clean so that when we apply the transfer, there won't be like any particles or anything, and it'll be able to stick very easily. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this new channel that I created to be exclusively for all of my DIYs. So I wanted to make this channel so that I can have one spot that I'm able to post all of my DIY inspiration. So I'm going to be posting on this channel once per week on every Friday. So I hope that you really enjoy this video, and before you leave, you decide to subscribe and join my YouTube journey. I would absolutely love to have you a part of my YouTube family. This mug press is so easy to make. You basically just turn it on and you put the mug inside of it, and it knows the exact temperature and the length of time. So you're just going to put it in, you're going to drop the lever down, and you're going to wait for it to beep. Then you're going to take it out and put it on a heat mat, and then you're going to let it cool, and then you're just going to pull off the paper and you're going to enjoy the amazing design. So I just wanted to mention, if you do not have a Cricut, you can recreate these mugs with stickers or decals, so you can still make the topper and still have the same effect. So now that we have the mug ready, we are going to be moving on to the faux whipped cream topper. And I have all of the items that I'm going to be using. I'm using just a Ziploc bag as my piping bag. I do have the tools for the actual piping. So I have a 3-piece set, the inner, the actual tip, which is a flat tip, and also the fastener. It's all Wilton. I got it at Joann's Crafts, so you can check them out. They have all types of piping materials there. So I picked up this spackle, which has to be a lightweight spackle for this to be able to work. It's light and fluffy. I just put about 2 spoonfuls, as you can see they're heaping size, to be able to make one topper. And you just want to make sure that same way how when you use a piping bag like this, you just want to make sure that all of the material is down towards the tip before you get started. And now that the foam dried on the base, so now I'm just going to go around the edge the same way. It's supposed to look like whipped cream, so the same way how you apply whipped cream to a mug, you're just going to make sure that you apply it and try to make it look as realistic as possible. Now, once you have applied all of your whipped cream / spackle to your base, you just want to make sure that you go back and fill in any gaps that you might see. You want to make sure that you check it from all angles. And when you're applying towards the bottom, you want to make sure that you overflow onto the actual base so that you're covering up all of the edge, so that later on when you put this on top of your cup, you do not see that there's anything underneath it. So while it's wet, I added in some real marshmallows just for like a little fun. Once they dry and harden up, they won't be any issue with it. And then to add in that little hot chocolate syrup, I'm using just a little brown acrylic paint. Once it dries, it looks just like you drizzled on hot chocolate. I also am adding on like a little paper straw that I cut in half. This one was from the 4th of July, so I'm just going to go in with a little red paint to just cover up the stars. If you already have, a different type of straw, then you can skip this step. But I'm using what I have on hand. And you're just going to attach it while wet. You're gonna let the topper dry for about 24 hours, and this is what it looks like after it's all dry. Absolutely beautiful. Once you get really close, you can see how realistic it actually came out. If I'm not mistaken, the Ray Dunn mugs with the toppers are either $12.99 or $15.99. So with this, I'm just using the Cricut base, and you're doing a DIY with everything else. And I absolutely love it because you can personalize it. Now we're moving on to our second mug, which, as I said, it's going to be Let's Get Toasted. I went into Design Space and I had this template of a personalized mug, and I'm just changing over the wording to be Let's Get Toasted. So I follow the same steps. I weeded out everything that we did not want to see, and I'm going to be doing the same steps as the first project. So leave me a comment down below which mug you like the best. Now, doesn't that look like some hot caramel just like dripped over the cup? I really love the color. Now, the next step that we're going to be doing is just adding on the wording. Now, I realized after I made this that I made one mistake with this. I should have cut the transfer tape to be as close as possible to the wording, because you'll see with it not being as close as possible, it did take off a little bit of the base color, but I think that it adds just like a nice little texture to the cup. But the next time I'll definitely make sure that I don't do that mistake. But this is how it looks. I love the end results. You can mix and match the topper because it does fit this cup as well. All of these items are dupes from Kirkland's collection. So we are going to get started with this lovely $29.99 Merry sign that Kirkland currently has on their website. So what I'm going to be using is all of the items that you see here. This wooden plaque is a 12 by 12 unfinished piece of wood. I'm going to be using some black acrylic paint and also my folk art glaze. So I'm going to be glazing around the edge so that we can duplicate the Kirkland sign. We're going to make sure that we have full coverage around the edge. It's roughly about ½ an inch. And then we're going to go in with the black acrylic paint. I'm making sure that I let the stain dry before I go in with the black paint. And then I let both dry overnight, and then the next day I get started with doing the decorations. So what I did in this case is I went and I got the Mary from one of the pre-selected decorations that they have in Design Space. And then I just changed the dimensions over so that it will fit this sign. And then the two separate words, I just did freehand typing to make those decals, and it looks absolutely amazing. Here it is. I think it looks absolutely beautiful, and it cost a fraction of the price. So here's our second DIY, and this is a Kirkland plaque, and it's $24.99. I'm using the plaque, and it's about 6 inches by 24 inches, and I'm going in with the same color wax from Folk Art, and I'm just giving it a nice coat. And then I'm going in and just wiping down the wax, and I'm covering it fully. I let it dry overnight, and then I'm going in with a little white Adirondack chalk paint just to like soften it up and give it a little more rustic look. So I also made these decals on my Cricut Explore Air 2. They look amazing. This is just white vinyl, and I think that it really pops against the base color. And then I also went in and selected one of the pre-designed trees, and I just adjusted the dimensions to fit my plaque. And then I'm going to go in and make the cutest little Christmas tree out of white felt, which will be the showstopper of this sign. So leave me a comment down below and let me know if you're enjoying these Kirkland DIY dupes. I absolutely love bringing you dupes. I was so excited to be able to create this video and all of these lovely decorations for Christmas. So leave me a comment down below which of these DIYs is your favorite, and if you enjoy watching dupe videos. Now this little felt tree is absolutely beautiful. I'm just freehand cutting out the triangles. It's really, up to you. It's based on the space, and I'm just going in and making little squares, and I'm cutting them in half and then making them into triangles. I'm stacking them one on top of each other, and I'm just using a little tacky glue to be able to adhere it to the base. And then to make the little trunk, I'm just using another piece of the felt. And once everything is together, it looks amazing. So again, leave me a comment down below and let me know how I'm doing with these dupes. DIY. It is fur covered garland balls, and Kirkland has them for $16.99. Theirs is a 7-foot garland, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. So I went to Joann Fabric and I picked up some faux fur, and I happen to have these ornament balls just laying around from last year. So as you know, I'm going to be changing my theme, so I have a lot of decor that I can use for my DIYs, so that's what I'm doing here. And I just cut out a rectangle. It's about like 6 inches square. It was actually, the original one that I cut out was like 6 inches by 7. And then on the later ones, I made them about a 6 by 6, and I tried to round them out just so that I wasn't wasting too much fabric with having to cut them off. But because this is fur, all you're going to be doing is just pinching and gluing all around the top opening. And it looks absolutely beautiful because the fur is very forgiving. It's nice and fluffy, and I feel like the more fabric that you put on this, the prettier it's going to be when it's all finished and you have the garland on your tree. I just absolutely love the texture and the feel of this garland. So if this is something, that you think would look nice in your decor, I really suggest that you should just try. You can get regular ornament balls from the Dollar Tree and just add on some fabric. It can be fur or it can be another type of fabric, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now to finish this off, I'm just using this white twine just because I think that it matches very well with the fur. I'm putting a little Scotch tape on the end so that I will be able to push it through the ornament tops and be able to string these beautiful faux covered ornaments and have this looking absolutely amazing. So I'm going to be showing you all of the DIYs all together so that you can enjoy and you can see what I'm going to be working with for this Christmas. I'm going to show you how I make this lantern for less than $4. So I'm getting started with just applying this folk art wax to all of the wood cuttings. So I'm basically using a large plaque that's roughly about 6 inches by 24, and I'm going to be cutting out the bases and the top. I'm also using some square dowel. It's roughly about 1/4 of an inch to about 3/8 inch wide, and they're about 36 inches long. And then I'm also using this little plank, which is roughly about 2 1/4 inches, and I'm going to be using that for the bottom base. So the lantern itself is roughly about 18 inches. So I'm just going to be cutting the two square dowels into 2 pieces, and we need 4 of them. So I'm cutting 4 18-inch long dowels. And the base itself is going to be about 6 inches square. And I'm just cutting this out now. I need a top and a bottom. And then the smaller dowels that I'm going to be completing the sides with will just be the measurement distance in between. Now I'm going to be using Rapid Fuse DAP glue that is amazing. It's the first time that I'm using this glue, and I absolutely love it. It sets super quick, about 30 seconds, and then it takes about 30 minutes to cure. So it made making this lantern very, very easy. So I definitely recommend it if you're going to be duplicating this lantern or doing any type of wooden projects like this. I definitely would look into this Rapid Fuse glue gel. Now, as you can see, putting this lantern together is absolutely so easy to be able to do, and this glue makes it so much easier. So I'm just applying a nice amount to just cover all of the sides, and then I'm just holding each part about 30 seconds for it to set, and then I'm moving on to the next part. So all of the wood that I'm using today I picked up from Joann's and also Lowe's. So if you like to duplicate it, you can find all of these pieces at those 2 stores. So leave me a comment down below if you've started decorating yet for Christmas, what your theme is going to be if you have started, and what areas in your home are you going to be decorating. Just leave me comments down below. Now to finish off the top, I have the same 6x6 plank that I used for the bottom, and I'm just attaching it, making sure that it's very sturdy, and just attaching 2 corners, and then I'm going in with adding the square dowel and just separating out the long dowel pieces so that everything is as square as possible. And to finish it off, I'm just attaching this nice little handle to the top, and this is how it turned out. Let me know if you like it. As I said, Kirkland's was $79.99 and I made mine for less than $4. Just have a piece of poster board paper, and I am making this really small tree about 5 inches. So I'm just taking the ruler and I'm just doing like a little measurement around the corner of the paper that is consistently 5 inches. And then once I had that traced out, I just cut it out. And now I am forming the cone. So the key to this is you want to make sure that the point is very sharp. So you just want to keep working it so that there's a nice point at the edge. And then once you have the point, you want to secure it with a little Scotch tape. And then I worked my way down, taping along the edge. This year I'm trying to make sure that I decorate with a lot of neutrals. I'm trying not to have too many like bright colors. If I do have colors, it's going to be like the pink, a little more of the Candyland theme. So I'm just trying to, make sure that I have enough neutrals in there to be able to balance off those colors. And these trees make it look absolutely amazing. So what I did was I just started from the point, and I just continued to wrap the yarn around the trees all the way to the bottom, making sure that you overlap, because when you overlap the yarn, it actually gives it a nice textured look. And at the end, I decided that I wanted to make it a little more textured. So I went in with a little additional yarn about midway of the tree, and it just makes it have a little more texture. And we are cutting different strips, lengths of fabric, which is 2 inches wide by 5, 4, 3, and about 2.5 inches. And what we're going to be doing is splitting the 2-inch wide fabric in half, and we're going to be leaving about 1/4 of an inch connected, so that when we tie the fabric around the dowel, that we still leave enough fabric for it to be able to adhere. I'm going to be using pinking shears for all of the fabric that I'm going to be using today, just because I don't want my fabric to fray, and I just like the edge that the pinking shears gives. So I'm just getting started with a 12-inch dowel, and I'm just going to be tying the fabric securely around the dowel. And basically it's your discretion, the lengths of your fabric, as well as how many pieces you decide on attaching. Now I have to say there is no wrong way of making this DIY. You basically just want to add all of the fabric strips. You can make adjustments, you can move them up and down, you can twist the strips around and adjust the fullness. It's really up to you how you want your tree to look. I tried to make mine as full as possible, and I'm just finishing it off. As you saw, I wanted my tree to be a little shorter, so I cut off a piece of the dowel just to make it a little shorter. And at the top, I'm going to be just adding one of these glitter stars that I purchased at the Dollar Tree last year. I'm just going to be adding that as my tree topper. And I'm going to fluff it all up, and I am going to make sure that the fabric strips are evenly dispersed and looking absolutely amazing. And at the last minute, I decided I was going to be using the bottom of one of my candle sticks. I also had previously purchased that at the Dollar Tree. So it's just one of those battery operated candles. It's like a metal base, and I just gave it a quick coat of paint, and now I'm using it here as my base. And I just put a little aluminum foil in the bottom because it just makes it fit really securely, and then I'm adding hot glue to just secure it. And this is how it looks, absolutely beautiful. And we're using a complementary fabric on this DIY, and I'm just doing a quick freehand template for a tree. So there's really no right or wrong way. I just quickly did a freehand template for this tree, and now I'm just cutting it out with my pinking shears. And then we're going to go in with some hot glue, and we're going to be attaching the front and the back of this adorable little tree together. And then we're going to be stuffing it with some polyfill. I'm going to be adding on a 6-inch dowel in this case, and I'm going to be securing it with a little wheel wooden wedge and making a little decorative stand out of burlap, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. All of these DIYs that I'm sharing today are considered like very primitive looking DIYs, and I think that it's gonna look very nice in my decor this year for Christmas. So leave me a comment down below what style decorating you're going to be doing this year, and if this is different from previous years for you. Now always remember, after you fill the tree with the polyfill, you're going to see certain areas where you need to go back in and close the seam with the glue, which is totally fine. It's really easy to be able to do after the stuffing is in. And this little guy is absolutely adorable. I'm starting out with doing a half circle, and it is roughly 10.5 by 5.5. And I'm just cutting the template out, and then I'm going to be cutting out one layer of this large plaid fabric. That's going to be making the hat. And then we're going to be using a Dollar Tree mop head as the hair that's going to be hanging down on the gnome. So as you can see, it's fairly easy to disassemble the mop head. I pulled off about 13 strands, and then I'm cutting them in halves because I think that's be the perfect dimension for the little pom-pom that we're going to be making. So we're going to be, now that we have it cut in half, so we're going to have a total of 26 strands once we cut it in half. And then we're going to be tying all of them together and making like a little pom-pom. Make sure that your piece of twine is long enough. I had cut a shorter piece and I had to go back and just cut a longer one. So you're just going to be tying that all together, and then you're going to put it aside, and we're going to start working on the gnome's hat. Now it's very important that you start with the flat end of the fabric facing away from you, and then you're just going to be going, and I'm using a pencil to be able to turn the fabric over. I have to say, the next time that I make this, I will make the point a little tighter, just so that the hat is just shaped a little more with a crisp point. Once you have the hat made, then you're going to then take your pom-pom, which you attach the 20-inch twine around, and you want to make sure that you leave a little loop at the top, so that when you slide it through the top portion of the hat, you're able to just pull it, and then it slides the pom-pom up into the hat, and it makes it secure. And you're able to also use that hanger if you're going to be doing this as an ornament and hanging it on your tree, or any other object that you're going to be using. I searched around and I had some glass beads, and I'm using that as a little nose, and then I'm putting a couple of white buttons on the top, and this is how my little guy looks. He is absolutely adorable. I am going to enjoy putting him on my tree, and I'm going to be making a lot more. And as you can see, everything coordinates very nicely together, and we're very easy to make. Tree, and what I'm using for this is 1 block of wood, 1 6-inch dowel, and 9 strips of ribbon. And you can make the ribbon at any length that you want, but I roughly started about 12 inches, and then I reduced the next ribbon by 1 inch so that you can get the shape of the tree. So what I did after that is you just glue the ribbon strips into a circle, and then I'm using a seam ripper to just punch a hole in the middle. And once you punch a hole in the middle, you're able to slide it over the dowel, and you're basically just stacking the ribbon till you form a tree. So for this project, you really can use any type of ribbon, that you have around your house. It can be with wire end or without. It really is up to you, but the end result is a beautiful ribbon tree. Our next DIY is very simple. We're using 4 12-inch dowels and 8 6-inch dowel, and we're just going to attach them with hot glue. We're going to form 2 boxes, and then we're going to attach those 2 layers together. Everything's being attached with hot glue, but if you prefer, you can also reinforce it with some type of stronger hole glue It can be a Gorilla Glue, it can be a wood glue, anything of your choice. I'm using hot glue. And then after it is attached together, I'm going to go back in with a little twine to finish off the edges and give it a little rustic look. But this is a very simple and high impact DIY that anyone can do. It's a basic level and it has such impact once you're able to put it in your decor. I forgot to mention before, but what I did was I spray painted the wooden dowel with matte black spray paint. So I'm currently in the middle of watching The Undoing, which is on HBO. I'm watching it on HBO Max. So I was just wondering if anyone else has any other suggestions of any other series that they're currently watching. If you do, just leave me a comment down below. On the screen are items that you can use for this project. So we're going to start off with staining the piece of wood that I'm going to be using for the mask holder. It's roughly 6 inches by 10 inches. The paint that I'm going to be using is called Apple Barrel and the color is Real Red, and I purchased this at Joann's store. I'm going to be using this to paint the mask holder and also to do the stencil. So as you can see, I'm just applying the red paint the same way that I've done in previous DIYs. I'm using a skewer to make it a lot easier so that you don't get paint on your hands and you also don't mess up the beads that you just painted. This is such a quick and easy project and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is just putting the actual stencil, and you want to make sure that you don't apply too much pressure or too much paint. You really just want to have a light dabbing motion. So I just wanted to share a little hack that I've been doing recently. I've been using a 50-50% baby shampoo and water solution that I spray on my glasses each day. After I spray it on, I put it under a warm stream of water. And then after that, I either let it air dry or I use the blow dryer to dry it off. And after that, once you put them on, your glasses will be fog free. So try this out and let me know if it works for you. Just leave me a comment down below. And if you have any other hacks that you have heard of or you've tried that keep your glasses fog free, please share it below. And here's the final result. This DIY was very quick and easy, and I hope you are able to duplicate it. All the items that you're going to need to make this DIY is on the screen. Each of the twine pieces, and there's a total of 15, are cut at 30 inches long. We're going to be doing a 3-strand braid, so each strand of the braid will have 5 twines. We're starting out folding back about 3 inches on one side, and then we're going to tie it off with an additional piece of twine about 1.5 inches down. And then we're going to just loop around, making a smooth loop to cover up the twine and to make a nice finished edge. I went around about 5 or 6 times, and then at the end of that you're going to cut off the remaining of the twine. You're going to continue wrapping around, and then you're going to put a little dab of glue to hold it. Once that's completed, we're going to then start doing the braid, and you're going to separate the 15 pieces into 3 sections, 5 strands each, and you're just going to start folding each section over the other in this type of braiding motion until you get down to the bottom. You're going to continue down, and roughly about 5 inches before the end of the braid, you're going to fold it back and finish it off exactly the same way that you did on the other side, making the 3-inch fold back and then making the loop the same size as the other of about 1.5 inches. And there you have it, a beautiful toilet paper holder. So I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, so please give it a thumbs up and also share with any friends and family that might like my content. Until the next time, have a blessed day.